Here are the top stories for today, October 14, 2020. Malacanang is confident that the 2021 national budget will be passed on Friday. Survey shows that 71% of Filipinos receive financial aid from the government. The Transportation Department is set to implement the one-seat-apart rule. And let us find out the story of a man who biked from Cavite to Pangasinan to meet his girlfriend. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Malacanang is confident that the House of Representatives can pass the General Appropriations Bill by Friday. This contains the proposed 4.5 trillion peso national budget of 2021. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the reopening debates will result in more discussions, but this would not delay the passage of the bill as long as discussions are concluded by Friday. He said the president is counting on debates to run smoothly now that the speakership row between Velasco and Taguig Pateros Representative Alan Peter Cayetano has been resolved. Should the House fail to pass the bill by Friday, Roque said the president may call for another week of special sessions. In a meeting with the president on Tuesday, Velasco and Cayetano vowed to work together as one majority to ensure the timely passage of the proposed 2021 national budget. The meeting took place after the House ratified Velasco's speakership election in Tuesday's session, essentially ousting Cayetano from his post. Roque said DOTr was very appreciative that budget debates would resume without disruptions. The latest SWS surveys show that some 71% of Filipino families received financial aid from the government since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. The survey also found out financial aid distribution was most widespread and frequent in Metro Manila compared to other areas. According to the survey, the figure hardly changed from the 72% recorded in July, implying there has been no increase in the recipients of government cash subsidy between July and September. The survey also showed that 67% of Filipinos said their families received financial aid once and 29% received it twice. The remaining 2% received it thrice, 1% received it 4 times, and 0.21% received it 5 times. Meanwhile, the 71% whose families received financial assistance said they received an average total of 7,531 pesos since the start of the COVID-19 crisis. The proportion of those whose family received money help from the government was the highest in Metro Manila at 82%, followed by the Visayas at 73%, Balance Luzon at 70%, and Mindanao at 64%. The survey was conducted from September 17 to 20 using mobile phone and computer-assisted telephone interviewing of 1,249 adult Filipinos nationwide. More passengers will be accommodated once the reduced physical distancing policy in public transport is implemented. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said that from 1 meter it will be 1 seat apart. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board will issue a clarificatory memorandum circular explaining in detail the 1 seat apart rule and the use of measures to increase capacity while ensuring the safety of passengers inside PUVs. Meanwhile, Transportation Secretary Arthur Tugade said the DOTr would fully support the return of motorcycle taxis on the streets, provided that a Congress resolution is passed to serve as the department's legal basis for its implementation. Tugade also ordered the LTFRB to speed up the processes needed for the deployment and operation of shuttle services for employees and workers. As for the implementation of service contracting for buses and PUJs, Tugade said this will be accelerated this month to give transport operators and drivers a steady source of income while improving the commuters' riding experience. In this scheme, the government will pay drivers a subsidy that will cover the cost of services rendered per kilometer by their buses and jeepneys plying down specific routes based on a set of performance indicators. To curb the spread of COVID-19, Tugade ordered the transport sector to ensure the strict enforcement of the 7 commandments inside public transport. More than 27,000 traditional public utility jeepneys are now plying the allowed routes in Metro Manila since the implementation of the General Community Quarantine. According to the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, 4,820 traditional jeepneys have been allowed to ply in 44 new and reopened routes beginning October 10. Aside from traditional jeepneys, modern jeepneys, public utility buses, point-to-point buses, UV Express units, taxis and Transport Network Vehicle Services or TNVS are also plying the streets of the National Capital Region. The Presidential Communications Operations Office or PCOO said it will focus on communicating recovery from the pandemic. During the agency's budget hearing, PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar said the proposed 1.59 billion peso budget will be used to communicate the government efforts as we recover from the pandemic. More on this from Janice Cavite.
During the budget hearing, PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar stressed the importance of relaying the news about what the government is doing amid the pandemic. He also detailed how the budget would be allocated. In the proposed budget, the PCOO proper has the largest share, amounting to 472.3 million pesos, followed by the Bureau of Broadcast Services at 405.5 million pesos and the Philippine Information Agency at 317.6 million pesos. The Presidential Broadcast Staff Radio TV Malacanang or PBS-RTVM gets the fourth largest share at 178.8 million pesos, followed by the News and Information Bureau at 133.1 million pesos and the Bureau of Communication Services at 68.6 million pesos. Meanwhile, the National Printing Office will get 11.9 million pesos. The agency also allocated 150 million pesos subsidies to its GOCCs. Andanar said the PCOO would continue to push for the passage of its key legislative priorities such as the Freedom of Information Bill and the Media Workers Welfare Bill. Meanwhile, Senator Bongo expressed full support for the PCOO's 2021 budget, saying the agency plays a vital role in delivering information about government projects, programs, and policies, especially at the height of the pandemic. Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri also manifested his support, saying he would push for the amendment of the budget, especially for the creation of the Government Strategic Communication Academy in Northern Mindanao. He said that amid the insurgency in the region, the government needs to communicate what it is actually doing for them. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cavite.
Cybersecurity measures are in place for the implementation of the national ID system. In a virtual press briefing, DICT Undersecretary Dennis Villorentes said PhilSys is a secured system, saying that the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA adopted some security measures in compliance with the International Standards Organization. The PSA will be establishing its own cybersecurity computer emergency response team, as well as installing a security operations center that will coordinate with the National Computer Emergency Response Team in order to sustain the government's national cybersecurity plan for Filipinos. Filipinos who will register for PhilSys will be provided with a 12-digit PhilSys number or personal serial number that they can present for identity authentication. The PSA has started rolling out the pre-registration phase of the PhilSys for at least 5 million targeted low-income household heads. As the government eases restrictions to allow the gradual reopening of the economy, DOTr research team wants the government to reimpose stricter quarantine classification. Experts from the DOTr research team specifically mentioned the need to impose localized lockdowns in Bawan, Batangas, Calbayog, Western Samar, and General Trias in Cavite. For its part, Malacanang said DOTr team was not publicize their recommendations on quarantine levels and instead share them with the government. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the research team could privately send them to the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases And President Rodrigo Duterte will ultimately decide on and announce the quarantine classifications. Although he appreciated the research team's efforts to help, Roque said this is the government's job to recommend quarantine classifications to the president.
Well, I really appreciate the efforts po of DOTr research team in helping us monitor COVID cases. Pero rin-request ko na po sa kanila na to desist from making recommendations on classification kasi talaga pang trabaho naman po yan ng mga eksperto. No? At I understand, although they have one or two epidemiologists, no, it's still not the same number of experts working with the IATF. Kapag mga municipalities or bayan-bayan ang involved, pwede na po yan aktuhan ng provincial governor in collaboration with the regional IATF. So hindi naman po yan nakakarating na sa IATF National.
Still to come, Mayor Isko Moreno warns of the possibility of having a second wave of COVID-19. And we will bring to you Pangasinan and Ilocos as they slowly bounce back from the pandemic. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita, basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. The possibility of having a second wave of COVID-19 pandemic may happen if Filipinos become lax on following the health protocols. This is according to Manila Mayor Isko Moreno Dumagoso, citing the rising number of infections in Europe and the United States. Associated Press said in its report on Saturday, Europe is caught unprepared as the second wave of the virus hits the region. Among these countries include Belgium, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, Spain, and France. Business news outlet CNBC also reported that 33 states in the U.S. have recorded their highest daily coronavirus cases since August. Data from Johns Hopkins University show that U.S. had a total of 57,420 new cases on Friday, the highest among cases reported in a single day since August 14. Dumagoso said he is grateful that most Manileños are following health protocols. He also reminded everyone that we must survive, and in survival there are possibilities, so we have to also be responsible individually. 10 villages in Pangasinan City have been placed under localized enhanced community quarantine following a spike of new COVID-19 cases. Here is our report.
The local interagency task force for COVID-19 has declared 10 of Pangasinan City's 54 barangays as critical zones after 25 new cases of COVID-19 were recorded on Monday. The spike of new cases of COVID-19 has prompted Mayor Samuel Co to issue an executive order imposing a 14-day localized enhanced community quarantine in the 10 identified critical zones. CO's ECQ directive is effective from Tuesday noon until noon on October 27. Meanwhile, General Santos City will likely go back to modified GCQ high-risk status once the current stricter GCQ ends on Thursday, October 15. Mayor Ronel Rivera said Tuesday they are studying such option as they continue to look at necessary control measures amid the continuing cluster and local transmission of COVID-19. Rivera said they will specifically decide whether there's a need to continue with the current movement restrictions, among them the total lockdown every Sunday, barangay clustering, and general curfew. In other news, 12 towns from Samar and southern Leyte provinces have been identified by the Department of Health as coronavirus-free, with no single case recorded since the start of the global health crisis. In Samar and northern Samar, all coronavirus-free areas are island towns, preventing virus carriers from the mainland from transmitting the virus to the residents. DOH Eastern Visayas Regional Director Minerva Molon urged local government units in these areas not to be complacent even with their COVID-19 free status. As of October 12, the region has already recorded 5,321 cases, including 4,665 recoveries and 51 deaths. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muaje.
The buri industry in Bolinao, Pangasinan is bouncing back from the effects of the COVID-19 lockdown. Precious Kayaon, owner of Kawaya Nature PH, said the company added buri planters to its existing buri bags and mats to cope with the demand of plant lovers. Kayaon said the 5 barangays of the Santiago Island are producing the buri-made products being sold by her company. The buri-made products are also made available through the provincial government of Pangasinan's Pamanang Yaman Produktong Pangasinan's project. Aside from the local market, the company has received orders from Singapore, some inquiries from Turkey and other countries. Kawaya Nature PH is a company supplying and promoting eco-friendly products. In Ilocos Norte, several rice farmers are shifting their focus to garlic, known as the white gold of the Ilocos region, for their livelihood. The Bacara Zanjera Irrigators Multipurpose Cooperative is the latest recipient of a 23.2 million peso garlic enterprise, which includes a garlic consolidation and trading center. The venture is funded under the Philippine Rural Development Project of the Department of Agriculture, or DA. Research Division Chief Dr. Jovita Datuin said the multi-million project is meant to revitalize the garlic industry in the region. Ilocos Norte is the top producer of garlic in the Philippines, contributing at least 69% or over 6,200 metric tons of the national output in the previous years. The construction of the proposed Bulacan International Airport is expected to boost the country's economy and provide jobs for thousands of Filipinos. Senator Richard Gordon welcomed the Senate's approval on third and final reading House Bill 7597, which grants a 50-year franchise for San Miguel Aero City Incorporated to construct and operate the airport. Gordon, who co-sponsored the bill, said it is something that will enhance other airports like Clark, Subic, and the New Manila International Airport. He said he just spoke with business tycoon Ramon Ang, Vice Chairman, President, and CEO of San Miguel Corporation, and discussed the possible investments in Central Luzon. Ang has proposed to attract Foxconn, assemblers of Apple products, to set up shop in the country. Gordon added that the proposed no gambling zone policy in the Aero City, which will be developed alongside the Bulacan Airport, will be a big plus to get new investments without relying on gambling. The proposed 2021 national budget will include projects related to COVID-19 worth 838.35 billion pesos. This is nearly 20% of the proposed 4.5 trillion peso budget for next year. Budget Secretary Wendell Avisado said the cabinet decided to adopt a case management stance instead of risk avoidance set up in a bid to further open the economy. He said agencies like the Department of Health and Department of Labor and Employment have been tasked to have their own programs that will help address the pandemic. Among the COVID-19 related programs that will be funded by next year's budget are the health insurance premiums for indigent families and senior citizens, medical assistance, and hiring and deployment of about doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers. Some 66 million pesos are also allocated for the country's participation in the International Solidarity Clinical Trial for COVID-19 vaccine to be launched by the World Health Organization, or WHO. Up next, Singapore reports infection-free day. And let us find out the story of a man who biked from Cavite to Pangasinan to meet his girlfriend. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The situation in the West Philippine Sea or South China Sea remains volatile due to actions by China and the United States to protect their interest in the disputed waters. Armed Forces Chief of Staff General Gilbert Gapay cited the aggressive reclamation and patrolling by China's Coast Guard and militia, as well as the United States maintaining sea lanes of communications open and free. With these developments affecting Manila's interest, Gapay said the AFP is maintaining its presence in the West Philippine Sea. He said the AFP conducts naval and air patrols every day with the help of the Philippine Coast Guard while improving the Philippines' facilities in the 9 occupied features in the area. With the Philippines involved in the crafting of the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea, Gapay said the AFP has aired its desire to have it fast-tracked so it will be ready early next year. One person was killed while 4 others were hurt when members of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front engaged in a firefight in Maguindanao on Tuesday. These sporadic clashes erupted at about 11 a.m. between the group of Salikiko, a delisted member of the MILF's 118th Base Command, and Ben Ticao of the MILF's 105th Base Command. The 2 groups were reportedly locked in a Rido or family feud due to a land dispute. A certain Alimuddin, a member of the Salikiko group, was killed and 3 of his companions were hurt. A subordinate was also hurt on the side of Ben Ticao. Government forces have put up checkpoints to prevent a spillover of the conflict. The Army's 33rd Infantry Battalion and 1st Mechanized Brigade were deployed to help local officials and the MILF leadership in peacefully resolving the conflict. A concerted effort is the key to stopping the extortion schemes of the communist terrorist group. Lieutenant Colonel Riandro Rubio, commanding officer of the Philippine Army's 91st Infantry Battalion, cited the importance of the involvement of all sectors, particularly the local government units, in addressing the extortion activities of the New People's Army. He said NPA attacks can happen to construction companies, especially during the modified general community quarantine. Rubio said the Critical Infrastructure Investment Protection and Security Operation, or CIPSO, is a mechanism created to bridge and strengthen the relationship between government troops and construction-related companies. He said this is part of their efforts to prevent the NPA from conducting harassment, threats, and intimidation. The local government unit of Dingalan, Aurora, headed by Mayor Sherwin Taay, hosted the CIPSO meeting, which was attended by project engineers and the Philippine National Police and other local officials. In our 4 news, Singapore on Tuesday reported no local COVID-19 infections for the first time since March. This was the first time since March 25 that no local cases of COVID-19 were found in workers' dormitories. The city-state's Ministry of Health, however, said that 4 new imported coronavirus cases had been confirmed. The imported cases were placed under a stay-home notice upon arrival in Singapore. Singapore has reported nearly 58,000 coronavirus cases with 28 deaths since the beginning of the outbreak. The first coronavirus case among migrant workers was found on February 8. The 3-month closed fishing season is starting on November 1. This means no fishing in select areas for 3 months. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, or BFAR, however, assures there is a stable supply of fisheries even as fishing activities close down in Northeast Palawan, Visayan Sea, and Zamboanga Peninsula. The move shall allow fish species to reproduce and mature and restore valuable fish stock for the conservation and management of round scad or galunggong in northern Palawan. Tugon Kabuhayan, a farmer and fisher advocacy group, expressed support for the move, saying the closed fishing season will help revitalize galunggong supply in the country. The aquaculture industry vowed to help fill the anticipated supply gap. Based on the 2018 fisheries profile, the aquaculture subsector produced 2.3 million metric tons, which is 53% of the Philippines' total fish production of 4.36 million metric tons. Samar is lighting up the San Juanico Bridge to bring in tourists and bring back life to businesses as the province recovers from the COVID-19 lockdown. Sol Alarcon has the story.
The Department of Tourism, Tourism Infrastructure and Enterprise Zone Authority and the provincial government of Samar made a test run of the San Juanico Bridge aesthetic lighting project. Lights testing was conducted last weekend.
So, ang bottom line talaga nito is to create. So, yun ang i-introduce dito ng province.
Works on illuminating the bridge is expected to be completed by December in time of Christmas season. The aesthetic lighting project is also a tool to attract more tourists, create new tourism activities, and more economic opportunities. An estimated 80 million pesos was allotted by TESA and DOT for the aesthetic lighting of the historic bridge. For the PNA Newsroom, Sol Alarcon, Philippine Information Agency, Region 8.
At a time of distancing and restrictions due to COVID-19, a man from Cavite traveled by bicycle to Pangasinan to personally meet his long-distance girlfriend. John Paul J.P. Gatbonton started his love-inspired journey on October 10 from Imus, Cavite with the intent to confess face-to-face to his girlfriend Donna Ocomen. He rode his bike through the slopes and zigzags of Pangasinan and braved the rains and winds brought about by Tropical Depression Nika. He arrived in Anda town late in the afternoon on October 12, where he was met by Ocomen's parents. Gatbonton and Ocomen are now legally a couple, and he is under quarantine at her house. He said that if you love a person, distance would not matter, and you will do everything and be faithful to one another. While it is true that love conquers all, please remember to maintain distancing, wear your protective gear, and refrain from kissing your partner without proper sanitation to prevent COVID-19 infection. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Malacanang is confident that the 2021 national budget will be passed on Friday. Survey shows that 71% of Filipinos receive financial aid from the government. The Transportation Department is set to implement the one-seat-apart rule. And let us find out the story of a man who biked from Cavite to Pangasinan to meet his girlfriend. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day, stay safe, everyone. God bless.